Hello again. Paradox have sponsored myself and a few others to play Across the Obelisk and tell you about its newly released DLC, Sands of Ulminin. Check it out using my link below. Anyway, who are a few others? Joining me today are Veilfisk, Potato McWhiskey, and Ambiguous Amphibian. Today we'll be putting together a slightly confusing team of characters that I assure you will make for some absolutely godly large numbers a little later on. AA will be sitting in the back as Reginald the healer. Ahead of him is Veilfisk playing Evelyn, the sorceress who's dressed as a vampire today. Then we have Potato as the porcine Pope Ottis. And then there's me, playing Heiner, who's ordinarily a robot, but today is a very large skeleton. First things first, we have some preparations to do in town. Sculpting our decks, moulding them to be something beautiful. As is true in many deck builders, in Across the Obelisk, often the quickest route to overpowered involves a trimmed down, hyper-focused deck. And today we'll be demonstrating this concept rather nicely. I'm immediately dumping any attacks that don't derive their damage from my block value, and upgrading every card that's left using the gold and shards left from my previous run, since this is a roguelite after all. The others have similarly spent their time optimizing their decks towards serving the greater good, which is to say, making Heiner even larger than he already is. I got a little lucky in that there was a shield available in the equipment shop, which increases the number of block charges I apply. Very good. Heading out into our first encounters with some of the local farm animals, it's quite immediately clear that this setup is a good one. Our big boy Heiner ended up with 338 block, which translates to a big smack of 186 damage to that poor sheep. After combat you get rewarded with a choice of 3 cards, but as we're running such a specific deck, we actually don't want that. So pretty much always just take the shards instead, which we can make use of later. Realistically, there's only 1 or 2 more cards that this deck needs to reach really truly outrageous levels. Anyway, we continue our journey through hordes of angry sheep and their herders, taking on extra challenges in the form of obelisk corruptions basically whenever they're offered, usually just for an extra chunk of currency.
Yeah, this should be a perfectly fine challenge.
This is a cakewalk.
Eventually, the local supply of mutton wears thin and makes way for lupine foes. Wolf people. We're getting into some deviant art circa 2010 kind of territory here. Wolf people at war with human people or something like that. In any case, the wolf people and their pig friends are no match for Heiner's sheer enormity, who thanks to our careful planning and team structure is able to stack up enough block in the first round of combat to immediately begin systematically wiping out the enemy team. Onwards then to the land of the Dryads. We're offered another of those obelisk corruptions I mentioned earlier. Melancholy. Apparently its difficulty is extreme, but the reward is an exotic equipment shop with a discount, which we require to free Veilfisk from his cursed ring, a subject upon which I refuse to elaborate. So we quite quickly agreed that this was worth it and that we'd have no struggles getting through the combat despite our decks being stuffed full of sadness. This was a mistake. You see, it turns out that even though having a deck full of sadness wasn't ever really going to put us in danger, it would rather significantly draw out this combat. With every single one of us gaining 2 sad cards per turn, you'll soon start to draw hands like this.
Weep.
Ooh, do a guard. Could do 1 guard. Seethe and cope.
On the other hand, one thing that a 12-minute long combat can provide is an extremely powerful feeling of relief once it's finally over.
Oh my god!
Yes!
Okay. Alright,
Blessed victory!
So now we can deal with Veil's cursed ring, and I can get these nice twin blades that give some extra card draw. As well as a fishing rod, because even though I'll be losing some block charge generation, the card draw from the carp far outweighs that loss. Potato gets an itchy burn because he just always clicks whichever dialogue option includes an image of their own face without even reading the text, and then we have to kill a Giga Dryad before we can move on towards the boss of Act 1, who is a large and angry tree named Ilma. Ilma isn't a particularly difficult boss even on a scuffed run of Across the Obelisk, and this is not a scuffed run. Since by now all of us have leveled up and gained some shiny new abilities as a result, Veilfisk, playing Evelyn, has gained the ability to enchant someone's weapons to convert their damage to any of the 3 elements. Lightning, ice, or in this case, against a giant tree, fire. The result of that is a big, girthy Heiner smacking Ilma with his coffin shield for 482 fire damage. Oof. But believe me, these are legitimately small numbers compared to where we're going later. We each get to pick an item from the ashes of Ilma and move on to a fiery Act 2, which means we get to spend some more time in a town faffing about with our decks and accessorizing our characters. And for some reason, Potato brought up League of Legends, which appears to be a universally traumatic subject for us all.
I made the one that doesn't disappear when you use it. So I'm going to be buffing up our Heiner Dinger?
Heimerdinger. No, I don't want to go back to League. I don't want to go back.
No.
Don't send me back. On that subject, if I can just take a break from telling the story whilst we bash through the first combat in Act 2 against some goat people and a goblin. Before this session, I had played about 25 hours of Across the Obelisk and enjoyed it quite a lot. But boy, does it ever shine in multiplayer. If you're lucky enough to have friends, which I realise excludes the majority of you, but if you are, this is a fantastic game to play with them. Throughout our session, we're all just laughing about the stupidity of our builds, generally talking shit, and later on, Veilfisk was just going to town on a pizza, which I was very jealous of, by the way. Anyway, all of that is just to say that while I know we've been sponsored to play this session, god damn, it was good fun. Alright, anyway, back to it. Veil keeps forgetting to play Cold Spark first, since its effects are based on the number of cards in hand. And since we're all massive card game nerds, we find it hilarious when anyone plays in a suboptimal manner.
Play Cold Spark, you dingus!
You ruined it!
Why did you play it?
It's blue with a white line on it. I can't tell.
Veil, remove Veil from the game.
Judge,
Judge, remove him. Send him back.
Veilfisk.
ejected from the game.
You missed lethal. Round 2 lethal missed. Oh my god. Judge.
Why would you be calling a judge for that? Judge, he missed lethal! A short ways into Act 2, we enter an arena event that pits us against a few waves of enemies from various areas of the game. First, bugs from the swamp with their squirrel with a frozen head for some reason. And then those wolf people that we murdered earlier, before finally, this big boy. Damn boy, he's thick! Astarios. A minotaur, I guess. In spite of his inarguable bulk, Heiner proved the bulkier on this day, putting him down with a pair of shield charges in only the second round of combat. As usual, we pretty much all take shards over cards, except for Veilfisk, who couldn't resist picking Noxious Eruption because of its funny likeness to a bad poo.
What about Noxious Eruption?
And then for winning the event, we all got this fantastic card, which when drawn grants a buff as well as drawing another card to take its place. Very good. We bash through another few combats involving mainly harpies and rock elementals, reaching new heights of damage, including a particularly juicy 779 against a poor, frail harpy. And in case you are, like AA was, curious as to why my defense cards are often much cheaper to play,
How are you getting all this card discount?
that's because we've all leveled up again and now defense cards in my hand at the start of my turn cost 1 less energy to play, which as you can imagine is rather helpful.
I don't like the phrase sopping.
Yeah, you shouldn't.
You're sopping
anyone-
moist orifices.
Anyone who does like sopping as a word should not be trusted.
I just... The word
Come
sopping.
on in, laddie, I'm sopping wet.
Oh, Jesus Christ, no!
We fight a giant enemy harpy whilst discussing who in their right mind would use the word sopping before finally putting the harpy matriarch out of her misery with a whopping, not sopping, 995 damage. Painfully close to breaking into 4 digits now. Again though, don't worry. We'll annihilate 4 digits later. Onwards then to the boss of Act 2. Ignido. But does he though? Let's see. He likes to summon annoying little magma spikes and shuffle ash into your deck, which can be a pain, but here we are at the end of round 1 and he's well on his way to being dead, so, you know. Yeah, he's done. To Act 3 then. We're going to the swamp after grabbing some items from his smouldering corpse. In town, I can now craft the card that really sends this deck well and truly off the edge of what's reasonable. Reinforced steel. Which just straight up doubles your block. Yeah. We talk more about moist orifices and do a little more accessorizing before moving on into Act 3.
No, I am flush with money.
He is full of money.
I am swollen with it. My moist orifices are overflowing with gold.
All right. I know enough now, I think.
In our first combat versus 2 mosquitoes and a pile of mossy dirt, the addition of reinforced steel to the deck proves rather... well, I mean, look, I'm about to remove a mosquito from this very plane of existence with a hit of 4,984. So we decided to keep this dirt pile alive for a while in some kind of torturous edging session to just see how far we can push this newfound block doubling technology. Heiner grows, and grows, and grows, swelling to ever more dangerous levels. You see, the thing about doubling numbers, well, that right there is what you call exponential. Frighteningly quickly, on round 13 of the fight, Heiner is up to 165,000 block. The numbers are getting rather small now, and if he chose to finally turn his bulk to offensive purposes, it would deal 124,000 damage to this poor, anguished mud pile. But no, that's not nearly enough. It's into the millions we go. 1 million, 2, 5, 10, 21 million. Now at this point around 40 million block, each doubling comes with an increasingly noticeable hiccup to the game, which rather hilariously seems to actually double in length in accordance with the block number's growth.
Very nice. Oh, the game did not like that.
Oh, buddy.
Slow down. 42 million.
To some, that would have signaled that it's a good time to stop. No. Onwards then to 170 million block, at which point doubling it again causes the multiplayer session to desync and resets to the beginning of my turn. So it seems we found the functional limit here. And credit where credit is due. The game could have just crashed, so props to the devs, who presumably knew that degenerates like us would push the game well beyond reasonable limits. Well then, all that's left to do is bash this foul wretch for a cool 119 million fire damage. At which point we've been playing for over 4 hours and it's well past my bedtime, so we called it a night. But to be fair, I think we've more than proved that we can in fact make it across the obelisk. If you want to see how the game ends, then I guess you'll just have to go and play it yourself. Or, I mean, you could just watch it on YouTube or something, but you know, I recommend buying it. Following my link, obviously. So, whatever you do, remain indoors. Heiner is out there, and he's really, really big. Thanks as ever for watching, and until next time, goodbye.